My wife left me for someone else when I got sick, but when she found out I got better and had money, she wanted to come back to me. I'm a 47-year-old guy, and things have been really tough lately. My wife stopped supporting me and started dating someone else when she found out I was really sick. It all began about a year ago. I suddenly fell sick at work and had to go to the emergency room. Doctors ran lots of tests and found out I had a bad liver infection. If it didn't get treated, it could be really bad. But when I got sick, my wife was away at a friend's wedding. I didn't tell my wife about my illness over the phone because I didn't want to worry her. When she came back and saw how sick I was, I had to tell her everything. She seemed surprised, but she didn't react the way I hoped. Instead of comforting me, she seemed more disappointed than anything else. I felt like she blamed me for getting sick. Anyway, I focused on getting better and tried to stay positive. It was tough to balance my job and my health. Doctors told me I needed to change my diet and exercise a lot. It made it hard to work well, but I did my best to manage. Meanwhile, I noticed my wife was pulling away from me. She wasn't as close as she used to be. When I tried to be close to her, she would say she was tired or needed rest. It bothered me, so I talked to her about it. She said she was stressed because of my illness, but I didn't believe her. When someone's sick, you don't push them away like that. To distract myself from all the stress, I threw myself into my job. I was so busy that I sometimes forgot to stick to my diet or take my medicine. Predictably, that caught up with me, and I got really sick again. I had to go back to the hospital, and this time, my wife saw everything. She took good care of me while I was there, and I had to stay for a whole week. The doctor told me straight up that I needed to start taking my health seriously, or things would only get worse. They said I should take some time off work and rest because working was making me sicker. But taking time off wasn't easy for me. You see, I don't work for just any company. The company I work for is owned by a close friend. He started it back in college and asked me to join, but I wasn't sure if it would be successful, so I took another job instead. However, 5 or 6 years later, when his company really took off, he offered me a high-ranking job with good pay. I joined, and since then, I've treated the company like my own and worked hard to make it grow. I rested for a few days, but then I felt like I had to get back to work. One day I was on a call with my doctor discussing my health report when the founder and CEO of the company I work for overheard. He was angry that I hadn't told him about my health problems and that I was working too much. He insisted I take a break from work until I fully recovered. I explained to him that I might not be able to come back to work ever because of my health. I wanted to work as much as possible to make sure my family would be okay financially. I hadn't talked about this with anyone, not even my wife, but I was worried about my health getting worse. I just wanted to make sure my wife and family would be taken care of if anything happened to me. I got emotional talking to my friend, and he promised me that if anything happened to me, he would look after my family's finances. That was a big relief for me, but I didn't want to rely on him too much. He insisted that I take a break from work for 6 months without losing any pay, and if I wanted, I could work from home sometimes. I went home and told my wife that I wouldn't be going to work starting the next day. Before I could explain everything, she asked me if I got fired. I gave her a playful look and said yes, because of my health. I wanted to lighten the mood by joking around. Her first reaction cut deep. "Are you dying?" she asked. How could she say that? But I went along with it, saying yes. Then she asked, "How long?" I said maybe 6 to 7 months or sooner. I thought she'd cry and I'd laugh, but her response was cold. She said, "How will I manage financially? You don't have enough savings for me. I've been telling you to leave your friend's company and find a better paying job overseas. We could have saved enough by now for me to live comfortably." It hit me hard that she wasn't concerned about me dying. She was worried about being left with nothing. I wanted to reassure her about the equity I own in the company, which could provide for her if anything happened to me, but I held back. I wanted to see how she'd react next. I realized I hadn't mentioned the substantial equity I received when the company hit its first big milestone. Now the amount of equity is close to $1.1 million, and it's still growing as the company does. But my married life has hit a wall. Our conversations have turned purely transactional. She doesn't even ask about my health anymore. I watch her leave in the morning and come back late, often eating out. She doesn't have a full-time job. She works as a nail artist at a salon during busy times. It all bothered me, but I focused on my health. Then last month, she came to me and asked when we were getting divorced. It shattered me. Divorce is the last thing I want, especially in my condition. I couldn't find the words to respond. She said it shouldn't be a shock. She needs to move on, and it's better to start separating from me. I sarcastically asked if she'd already found someone else. She nodded and said yes. It was a guy she'd known for a while, but now she sees him as a potential partner and is going on dates with him. I can't even describe how I felt that day. It was like a weight dropped in my stomach. I felt like my marriage was a lie. I talked to my friend about this, and he suggested removing my wife, let's call her J, from all my legal documents. So I've taken her off as my nominee for the equity and everything else. J doesn't know about the equity. I plan to surprise her with it when I retired, and by then it would have grown a lot. I'm glad I didn't tell her. She might have pretended to care just for the money. To add, I've been diagnosed with a serious liver infection, and if I don't take care of myself, it could get worse. But the doctors are hopeful I can recover if I follow their advice on medicine, lifestyle changes, rest, and all that. When I joked with Jay about it being terminal, it was just a prank to scare her, but it ended up changing everything. Hello everyone, thank you for all your kind words. You were right. I'm grateful that I pretended to have a terminal illness because it revealed Jay's true colors. Otherwise, I might have lived a lie. We don't have children, and my parents passed away a few years ago. My relationship with my brother isn't very close, so everything I have would have gone to Jay automatically. Despite my health declining, I worked hard over the past year to earn enough money for her, and this is how she repaid me. At first, I tried to ignore her and focus on getting better. I joined a fitness class recommended by my doctor, followed a strict diet, went for runs, and did everything to improve my health. But I wasn't healing as quickly as I should have been. I realized that all the good I was doing for myself was being undone by just seeing Jay. Seeing Jay get ready for her dates was unbearable for me. She'd come home drunk with smeared makeup, and we hardly spoke. Sometimes she'd casually ask about the divorce or make sarcastic comments about how many days my diet would add to my life. It hurt, even though I pretended not to care. It felt like it was slowing down my healing process, maybe even making it worse. Before all this, my life was pretty dull. It was just work and Jay. Now that both were slipping away, I felt lost. My friend offered me a place to stay in the rooftop dwelling of our office. It's a small setup with a bedroom and a living room where we used to hang out after work. I accepted because being at home was suffocating. Being at the office would keep me distracted, and I could easily walk down to catch up with my team and colleagues anytime. Just a week of staying at the office rooftop has made a big difference for me. When I was moving out, Jay asked if I was leaving for good. I told her it was until the divorce was finalized. After that, she didn't reach out to me. The only time she contacted me was when she got the divorce papers. She left a voicemail thanking me for making the process hassle-free. Our divorce went smoothly because there wasn't much for me to fight for, or so she thought. What she didn't know was that the house we lived in was leased for 10 years, and 8.5 years had already passed. There were only 1.5 years left. I agreed to put her name on the lease so she could live there rent-free for the remaining time. She knew I didn't have much savings, and I told her I was using what I had to support myself with my health condition. So everything's settled now. I'm focusing on eating well, going to my fitness classes, and sometimes joining important work calls from my apartment to pass the time. That's wonderful news about your health. It must feel like a weight has been lifted off your shoulders. It's amazing how a positive outlook can make such a difference. Keep us updated on your progress. Update 1. Thank you all for your kind wishes. You were right. I'm relieved I pretended to have a terminal illness because it revealed Jay's true colors. We don't have kids, and my parents passed away a few years ago. My relationship with my brother isn't very close, so everything I have would have gone to Jay. Despite my declining health, I worked hard to earn enough money for her, and this is how she treated me. It sounds like you made a strong effort to focus on your well-being despite the challenges. It's tough when even positive changes don't seem to make a difference because of the stress around you. Update 2. Thanks for checking in. As I mentioned before, my divorce is settled, and I let my ex-wife stay in our house until the lease ran out. I've been living in the company's rooftop house for a while. After the divorce, I moved out, keeping only the essentials with me, and the rest went into storage. When I went back to collect my things, I found Jay's boyfriend had moved in with her. It was awkward when he approached me, offering sympathy about my supposed terminal illness. I just smiled. He asked how much time I had left, and I told him I wasn't sure, maybe a few more months. Surprisingly, I felt relatively calm seeing my wife's boyfriend. Maybe I'd moved on, or maybe I was secretly relieved to pass my freeloading wife off to him. I'm glad to hear your health has improved so much. Being able to work conveniently at your office building sounds like it's been a big help. Now that your health is better, it's great that you're planning to use some of your equity to get your life back on track and find a new place to settle down. It's been quite a while since you've been living at the office building, and while your friend says you can stay as long as you need, you don't want to overstay your welcome. In the midst of all this, you got a surprising text from someone claiming to be AP's wife. You agreed to meet her, and when you did, she seemed surprised that you didn't look like someone suffering from a terminal illness. Curious, you asked why she wanted to meet you and what she knew about you. She revealed that her husband, AP, had been having an affair with Jay for over 2 years, but they had kept it secret. After your illness became known and your wife got the house, AP confessed the affair to his wife, left her, and moved into your house. I was really confused because Jay knew that we didn't own the house, we were just renting it. And it seemed like she only acted like she was leaving because I was sick, but she had been cheating on me long before that. AP's wife was heartbroken when she found out because she thought Jay had tempted her husband into the affair. 2 years ago, AP got some money from his dad's inheritance. AP is much older than us, maybe in his late 50s, and they have grown-up kids. She said she'd be willing to forgive him and try to fix things if Jay left him alone. She asked for my help. I'd asked if she was sure about this because AP had been cheating on her for 2 years. She said yes because she didn't want to break up their family and they had plans to retire together. She couldn't imagine being alone at that age. I'm not judging her decision at all. It's up to her if she wants to give her cheating husband another chance. They hadn't gotten divorced yet. I finally told AP's wife the truth about my health, and she was really happy to hear I was doing better. She congratulated me on my recovery and asked about my plans. I mentioned I was thinking about getting my own place. Then I let her know that the house Jay and AP were living in wasn't owned but rented for the next year and a half. Her eyes lit up with this news and I could tell she had a plan. She thanked me and left. The next morning my phone was blowing up with Jay's calls and messages. She sent voice notes asking why I lied about my health, why I didn't tell her I was better, and accusing me of cheating by hiding the equity thing. It was kind of funny hearing her panic. Later, she came to my office. I saw her waiting through the conference room and asked the receptionist to let her wait for a couple of hours. I know it sounds a bit mean, but I couldn't help but enjoy seeing her anxious. The tables had turned. Months ago, I was the one feeling anxious and desperate while she went out on dates and came home late at night drunk. When Jay finally came into my office, she burst in, yelling the same things she'd said in her voicemails. I listened to every word, but instead of feeling angry, I found myself enjoying her frustration. It was clear she was miserable. I couldn't help but smirk as she ranted at me. I decided to confront her and asked how long she'd been cheating on me. She stayed silent for a moment, then tried to lie, saying it was only after I got sick. But I gave her a look that told her I knew the truth. I pushed her to confess, telling her I knew she'd been seeing AP for 2 years. I asked if she was only with me for money. She admitted it was just a casual friendship, nothing serious. She claimed she only slept with AP after hearing about my illness. I couldn't believe it, cheating on a dying husband with another man. She kept lying until I pushed her to tell the truth. She started crying and begging for us to get back together. She confessed that she thought I didn't have much money, so when she found out AP inherited $1 million from his father, she went after him. But AP wasn't willing to leave his wife unless Jay could prove she wasn't just after his money. So she offered him the house if he left his wife and married her. She was planning to deceive him too. But AP's wife found out about me and revealed the truth just in time. I smiled and told Jay to leave. She asked to meet for dinner, but I declined and told her to leave. She thought everything was sorted and wanted us to get back together, but I wasn't having it. She tried using tears to convince me, but she forgot she wasn't my wife anymore, and I wouldn't give in to her requests. I told her to leave or I'd call security. Let me tell you, there's nothing more satisfying than seeing the defeated face of your cheating partner. I'll update you once I've settled into my new life. Update 3. Hey everyone, I'm feeling really happy to share this update. My latest diagnosis report confirms that I'm completely healed. I've lost almost 25 pounds since I was diagnosed with liver disease, and a big part of that is thanks to changes in my lifestyle. I was so focused on making money for my family and my ex-wife that I ignored my health. And in the end, what did I get? Nothing. She left me as soon as she found out I was sick. In the last update, I mentioned Jay coming to my workplace and asking for another chance. What actually happened was after meeting with me, AP's wife went straight to AP and told him that Jay was only interested in his money. Up until then, AP had been defending Jay because she let him move into the house. But when he learned that the house was rented and she would soon rely entirely on him, he felt betrayed. Jay had told him many lies to manipulate him. She was indeed after his inheritance money, but AP's wife was determined not to let that money go to Jay because it was meant for her children. Eventually, AP's wife succeeded in getting rid of Jay from AP's life. I'm not sure about AP's relationship with his wife and family. AP's wife used to keep me updated, but we don't talk anymore. I've asked her a few times how she could forgive her husband's cheating, but she doesn't want to discuss personal matters, so I haven't pushed further. My ex-wife tried everything to get back together: calls, emails, texts. It got too much, so I blocked her everywhere. When she found out I was getting my own place, she showed up at my office and sent me flowers and gifts. But here's the thing, she doesn't have a job. The lease on our house is ending soon. I found out she rented out one of the rooms to a bachelor for over a year, and that rent covers her other expenses. I don't know how else she's getting by without a job. Maybe she's getting other things from other men. Anyway, now I think everything happens for a reason, and it's a good thing. my health is better, and I bought my own place, a cozy 2-bedroom penthouse. It's just how I like it, and I couldn't be happier. Many of you, including my friends and family, have suggested that I start dating again or at least meet new women. I haven't done that yet. Some younger colleagues at work recommended trying social media platforms, especially for people over 45 who are starting fresh. I've installed them, but I'm not very confident about diving into the modern dating scene. People have warned me about scammers on these dating sites, so I'm a bit nervous. I just don't want to get into any new complications. Any tips or advice would be greatly appreciated. Thanks for all the support and suggestions. Next story. Discovered my wife went on a honeymoon with her AP after our marriage. Then I went to her work and exposed them. I, a 29-year-old man, had just moved to a new city. One night, while trying to get to know the area, I met my now wife. We dated for a year before getting married. At first, our relationship was like any other newlywed couples, happy, loving, and wanting to be together all the time. But there were some warning signs. During our dating days, my wife had a well-paying job with lots of perks, which I benefited from too. She introduced me to her boss, and we seemed to get along. I had to be supportive because her job involved a lot of travel for meetings. I didn't mind until she mentioned going on a business trip with her boss just 2 weeks after our wedding. I thought it was only fair that we spend more time together since we were still in the honeymoon phase. I brought this up to her and tried to stop her, but instead, we had a huge fight. We'd never fought before. She called me unreasonable, and I couldn't help but wonder about these business trips. Despite my feelings, she still went with her boss, completely ignoring me. Feeling upset, I turned to my friends for advice, and they all suspected something was wrong. This made me even more curious, but I had to wait for her to come back because talking to her at that moment wouldn't help. When she returned after a week, I acted normal to avoid suspicion. I tried to unlock her phone while she slept, but she had changed the password. Undeterred, I secretly watched her for the next few days until I saw her type in the password and memorized it. When I finally got into her phone again, I was shocked by what I found. My wife had changed her boss's name to a woman's, but I could tell from the conversations and the many nude photos exchanged between them that it was actually her boss. You can imagine how stunned I was. She had been cheating on me all this time. I felt torn and confused. Turns out, she considered her business trip with her boss as her real honeymoon. Those were her exact words in their chats. It became clear to me that she married me to hide the rumors about her dating her boss, who was a married man. Suddenly, I realized that all the perks and special treatment she got at work were because of their affair, not because of her skills. How could I have been so blind? But who thinks clearly when they're in love and starting a marriage full of hopes, dreams, and plans together? I took screenshots of the messages as evidence and saved them to my phone, making sure to delete any traces of my actions. Despite feeling furious, I knew I wasn't proud of what I did next. I took my wife's computer and edited her presentation that was due the next morning. I added an intimate photo of her and her boss from their recent trip as the second slide, leaving everything else unchanged. The next morning, she went to work with her presentation, unaware of what I had done. About an hour later, I got a frantic call from her. She had given the presentation and accidentally exposed herself and her boss to everyone. She blamed me for ruining her life and her career. When she came home, she was furious and tried to hit me. I asked her to leave, but she refused. Luckily, her cousin lived nearby, so I called her to come and help. After explaining what happened, her cousin took her away as she screamed and caused a scene. I just wanted peace of mind, and I felt somewhat relieved by her reaction because, honestly, she deserved it. I've already filed for an annulment of the marriage. We've only been married for less than a month, and I want nothing to do with her ever again. So I'll come out of this relatively unscathed, except for the immense emotional pain. My so-called wife tried to go back to her boss, but he rejected her too. He decided to focus on his family instead. Now she's miserable and depressed. It makes me wonder, was it worth it to destroy a good man in marriage? All the time, emotions, and money I put into this relationship were wasted. I feel betrayed, used, heartbroken, and sad for all the time I lost that I'll never get back. Overall, I've learned my lessons and decided to take things one day at a time while waiting for the annulment to be finalized.